welcome to whatever this is. I'm your host, Cole. I plan on reviewing obscure films that nobody's really talked about, good and bad. Today, I want to start things off with the 1978 exploitation film, The Bees. Not to be confused with the 1978 exploitation film, The Swarm, which paid the producers of The Bees to delay the release in order to be the first film coming out on the killer bee fear. Now, I'm an entomology major with an interest in stinging insects, so I know a fair amount of this fascinating background story that I think is definitely worth getting into before we get into the actual movie. So before we talk about the movie, let's talk about what it's exploiting. So first, let's talk about honeybees. Apis mellifera, or the European honeybee, was widespread in Afro-Eurasia. It wasn't until the 1600s that honeybees were brought to the Americas by settlers. During the late 50s, the market for honey production was booming. But the European honeybee struggled in tropical climates. This was an issue because the country of Brazil wanted to get in on the honey production gold mine, but they couldn't do it. So a man by the name of Warwick Ephraim Kerr, an apiologist, came up with a solution of breeding your typical domesticated bee with the African variant of the species. The subspecies is wild and more aggressive, but thrives in tropical climate. Thanks to his basically Frankenstein creation, by 2009, Brazil was listed as the fourth largest honey exporter in the world. This is all wonderful. However, one of Kerr's assistants accidentally let a few colonies escape back in the 60s, I believe. And because of this, they did well outside, started coming up higher and higher to the U.S. They got the name killer bees because they were slightly more aggressive, and people started freaking out. This image is actually a favorite of mine because this isn't even a bee. This is a cicada killer. Very different. But after all this settles down, they come here, where I am, the Americas. People realize they're not really as big of a deal as they thought they were. They start actually preferring them in certain areas. They're more aggressive, but they're more productive. So much like the murder hornet scare, this turned out to be less of a big deal.
Into rural areas, none have yet been seen in the more heavily populated areas. Eyewitnesses say that the bees are yellow and black.
As I said, senor, you white guys!
Much the way.
Our story opens with an introduction of what I said, but worse.
A few years ago, African honeybees were imported to Brazil. They bred with the local species, producing a new, aggressive, and dangerous strain that, without provocation, attacked and killed countless animals and scores of humans. These bees spread uncontrollably throughout the country. Each year, the area infested by the killer bees grows larger and larger. At this moment, South America has been completely invaded.
Importantly, they hype up the invasion. Oh, new dangerous species invaded. We know they're more aggressive. Are they dangerous? More dangerous than your regular bee? Well, roughly 1 out of 20 Americans have a bee allergy, and a smaller proportion of them are deathly allergic. So there is some genuine concern, and importantly, yes, there were more sting cases reported than there used to be. But the vast majority of people, this is a fairly harmless thing. And it would take thousands of stings to kill most people. So it's technically possible to get stung, but unless you were like whacking a nest to get stung that many times. Very unlikely. We are then introduced to a honey thief and his son who broke into an apiculture.
Hold this.
Papa, what does that say?
It says honey. Plenty of honey in there.
You sure that's what it says? Not anything else that might be important? Why is it this kid though? Doesn't he live here? Anyway, the kid dies. Because of this, the apiologist, an older gentleman who's clearly here to die, and who I believe is his wife, who is way too young for him, are attacked by an angry mob of friends and family of the kid that died. The mob starts trashing the place, the devil bees escape, and the expendable old man dies. Heading Cole here, I just want to say I appreciate the moments where they do use real bees. This is not a common occurrence. It's mostly sawdust and fake fog. But I want to say, when they do use real bees, I appreciate it. It's hard to work with real animals, and they had to make sure everyone was okay and wasn't going to get hurt. And, you know, I appreciate that. I wish there were more moments like this, but on the whole, good job, I guess. So we are finally introduced to our main characters, Dr. Hummel, or Uncle Ziggy, who I will call him Uncle Ziggy for the rest of this review, and Dr. John Norman.
Look at this one. It's alive. And she's a friend insect. Look at it.
I didn't edit that. The scene just ends like that. God bless this man. The now widowed scientist Sandy makes her way to visit John at his apartment. On her way, she's stopped by two buggers that steal her briefcase, and of course, because she's a bee scientist, it's full of bees, because reasons. Anyway, now she meets up with John, and she's still upset because she watched her husband die in front of her, which she definitely won't forget immediately after this scene. But anyway, we finally get to hear Uncle Ziggy speak.
Ah, you're home. Good.
Where have you been?
I was in the country. But I just realized I had forgot Sandra was coming in yesterday. Have you heard from her?
Well, actually, she's,
Uncle Ziggy!
This man has the worst German accent I've ever heard. When I was watching this for the first time with my friends, we started betting on what his accent was supposed to be. I thought it was Russian for some reason. But when it comes to bad acting, this film really takes the cake.
Julio Cesar, I've got some news for you, and some money.
What kind of news? And how much?
How would you like to spend your vacations in the United States? All expenses paid by my company.
You better not be cheating me, man.
I'm not, it's for sure.
I trust him. So the bees go on a rampage in the United States. So there's this massive freaking cloud of bees that me and my friends have lovingly called the smoke. This dude just falls over for no reason. The bees create this super hive in a cave, which I doubt I need to tell you wouldn't happen. You're so smart. That's why I love you.
See this brown bag? You think you can catch me some bees and put them in that? Well, you see, I got a little problem with my legs called rheumatism. It hurts. It hurts all the time.
Yeah, so?
you might not believe it, the bee sting makes it feel better. So what I want you to do is to take this paper bag and catch me 4 or 5 bees. Bring them to me. But don't let them sting you. They can only sting one time, then they die.
Well, to add some commentary, people do use bee stings for a variety of things. Whether or not it actually does the things that they are sold to do is actually up for debate. There are quite a few things that something like venom from stinging insects have been known to help. Like, there are actually been research in regards to cancer treatment. I haven't heard much about pain, though I wouldn't recommend it, since the goal of a sting is to cause pain.
Why can't we use that new Farron tomorrow?
You heard that right. Pherone. Not pheromone. Pherone. So when I was showing this to a couple of my bug friends, Pherone has become an inside joke between us. It isn't just a misinterpretation by this one actor, by the way. Every single character says this. To me, this is a very clear indication that they did not care about doing correct research when making this movie. So John and Sandy go out to a hive with their new Pherone and use it on the hive, and the workers kill the queen and they make out.
The queen bee leads her swarm from the hive in order to start a new colony somewhere else. Now the drones, that is the fertile males, must mate with her on this so-called nuptial flight. They find her by scent. That is, the queen bee gives off a chemical odor, which the drones can detect for hundreds of yards. So what Dr. Hummel proposes is the synthetic manufacture of this chemical, which is known as a pherone, and can be sprayed into the atmosphere, and we believe cause the drones to become confused and attempt to mate with each other rather than with the queen bee.
So, some of that made sense. I don't see how turning the drones gay kills the queen, but who am I to argue with the genius of Uncle Ziggy? This guy has that incredible accent, after all. In regards to what they were saying about nuptial flights, that part's correct. But I do not see how making the males mate with each other kills the already mated queen. And also, earlier they explicitly said the workers killed the queen. And the workers are the non-reproductive females, not the male drones. So this whole drone thing just makes no sense. Anyway, they get the funding and all seems perfect. They are going to distribute the Pherone and kill all the bees. But now there's this new side plot. Government corruption! Uncle Ziggy finds out the government-led bee research funding has been stolen by a corrupt government official. Out of fear, the government official sends hitmen to kill Uncle Ziggy. These aren't just any hitmen, they're the very best. So, Uncle Ziggy gets shot, and after finding Uncle Ziggy, he says this to John and Sandy.
The bees, they know everything. They are a new species. They are too smart for the Pherones. It's all in the tape, Sandra. It's ironic. They can think like man.
So how Uncle Ziggy knows this is far beyond me. How these bees are suddenly able to become as intelligent as people, I have no idea. Some insects, especially honeybees, are quite intelligent. Research shows they're able to count to 6 and understand the concept of 0, but it is impossible for insects to have the intelligence of people. I love insects, but they're big dummies. Anyway, the politician, the corrupt government official, he dies. He gets killer beed. and thus ends his plotline completely. Would it have been interesting to see a government official try to take down our main characters? Yes. Am I disappointed? Meh. So fast forward a bit, they're dropping missiles, they're breaking out the flamethrowers, they start torching all the bees. The bees have invaded entire cities, there's chaos, people are running for safety. While that's happening, our brave genius heroes are apparently trying to decipher the language of the bees, because I guess they plan on reasoning the super intelligent bees set on destroying humanity. So now we're reaching the end of the film. This is where we get a Neil Breen-like monologue about protecting the environment. Apparently the bees have evolved super intelligence because we are hurting nature. I don't know where this came from. There was no setup for this.
Now, as never before in our long history, the Earth is being threatened by mankind.
Representatives in the legislature, that environmental solar panel development bill will fail next week.
Not to mention the cash it'll put in our pockets.
So that was The Bees, a roller coaster of a bad movie that I actually really enjoyed. There's so many funny things I had to leave out, and I highly recommend you check this movie out. This is far from a good movie. Plot's nonsensical, the acting's mediocre at best, the effects are laughable, but there's an undeniable charm to this film. This is my first main YouTube video on my channel in which I hope to go over other old movies featuring insects as the antagonists. Feel free to leave any comments on what you'd like me to cover next. I'm currently reading the 1905 short story Empire of Ants by H.G. Wells for my next review of a film with the same name. I haven't seen it yet, but I am excited. But with that marks the end of the video. Have a wonderful day.